I understand it. Over at Reagan Golf right now, which is the second floor over there. We're supposed to be home Tuesday. They extended it for a month, so it's okay. It's the first time he's been in. It's the first time he's not home for Christmas. So Mama's more concerned about it. Yeah, he's just not around. He's having a very come home safely and transfer to Joe. They'll rent this house.
Where's it going?
Max River. Harold. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, you just got orders at Max River. You just bought a house in Virginia Beach.
Where is that?
Max River is about 60 miles south of DC. Yeah. His girlfriend's an attorney, so she'll be able to.
She'll fit right in.
She'll fit right in there, yeah.
You won't have to work.
Was he allowed?
You gonna retire with it?
She actually.
Don't get married now.
She's an Navy attorney. Yeah.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seems to be on board with their budgets. The only one is the police department with the officers at functions. As you know, this year we've had a shortage of police officers, so we're a little short on that. Revenue sharing. Our revenue sharing is up $9,000 for the month of November, and for the year to date, it's up $32,000. Excise tax for the month of November, we're up $51,000 from last year. And I'm projecting another $50,000 for next month. We have grants and special projects. We have a few grants that we're waiting for funds. The BRIN grant, the CDBG Business Assistance Grant, the ATV Municipal Grant, and Northern Border Regional Commission. So we should have the funds in before year end. Town's expense budget. All departments are under budget at this time. We should be at 91.67, and they're all below 91.67. Any questions?
General assistance report, there were no cases for October. Certificate of commitment to receive user rates $46,557.83.
I'll make a
motion. Scott. Second Corey. Discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. Next item is a regional school discussion. This has been requested by a community member to be put on the agenda. Before we get into that discussion, I would like to say my personal opinion in regards to this and whether or not the council should be making a stand or statement on this. I think that number one, it's premature for us to make a statement in this regards as a council before the school board that represents the executive part of our town that's charged with overseeing the school makes a recommendation or a statement. So I think we certainly can have a discussion of this item, but I think we're like the rest of the citizens in the community in that regard for purposes of making a statement. So we have been given some information tonight. We received it earlier in the email, and there's a hard copy on the table today for us to review. It's my understanding that there are going to be some community members that wish to speak in regards to this. I will let people speak and say their piece. I don't want this to go on for hours, so I would like to have people state their points. And 5 minutes of talking should be enough for a person to say what they have to say. And at the same time, while someone is making their statements, I would ask the other members of the audience to refrain from interfering with that person's statement by questions or heckling or etc. So try to keep this organized and civil. So at this point in time, I'm willing to acknowledge anybody that wants to make a statement. Bob.
Yeah, basically, we at least I feel that the town council and the town should be aware of it beyond the school board, simply because when you guys get a bill from the school, you send it to the taxpayers, and you get the brunt of the static if the taxes go up. And I've all felt that. This new school, all everybody says, is a $300 million. It's got to be maintained. There's going to be a definite tax increase to the communities for just the maintenance, the new teachers, the upkeep, the heat, the electricity. You can name it, there will be. And that's one of the reasons that the way the state has set up the procedure in getting this, one of the last steps is telling the community oh, this will probably cost you X amount of dollars. So we've gone through 2.5 to 3 years of hashing different things out, the site and this and that. And then when it comes to the end, you know, there might be a drastic tax increase. And the other thing I just heard of just a few days ago, a few of these schools that got grants, there were overruns of 10 to 20%. 10% of 100 million is 10 million, and who pays for that? Community. Okay? So that's something we all have to think about. And then the procedure that they initially used, there was one law firm that represented 4 entities. 27, 33, Madawaska, and the Unified School. Same law firm, drew a contract for everybody. Didn't advise the different ones that you should have an attorney look at this to protect yourselves. And once it was done, and they started analyzing it, the town of Fort Kent, although it has, each school has 3 members. So we have 3 members on the directors. Madawaska has 3, Frenchville and Senegat has 3. But they set it up so that in order to pass anything, you have to get 7 out of 9, unless specified differently in the contract. And in a few places in the contract, it says 2/3 would approve it. Now, Madawaska and Frenchville, I've been to several site committee meetings, I've been to the director meetings and board meetings. Town of Frenchville are in bed together. There's no question about it. There is no way we could outvote them. They would control the budget, they would control the curriculum, everything. Fort Kent could go, or MSAD 27 could go, all 3 people one way. They're not going to beat them. They've established grounds in concrete that that's what's going to be. To the point where they said, if the school is not in Frenchville, we're out. And I'm sure everybody probably heard that rumor. It's not a rumor, it happened. So the reason that we feel that you people should be more informed, maybe you are more informed than I am, is that in the end, you guys are going to bear the burden of writing out tax bills for people in this community. And of course the other communities in 27 as well. So the initial agreement is skewed completely towards 33, Senegat, and Frenchville. We have no say in what's going to happen. The site committee, we had members of the site committee, Sue was on the site committee. We send gentle people to the site committee. Madawaska and Senegat and Frenchville sent people that were very arrogant, they were very condescending, they bullied the group from Fort Kent to the point where every time something was said, it didn't make any sense. They decided on a matrix to qualify one town over the other, and they manipulated that so that the view from the new school would weigh as much as the police department in Fort Kent, the hospital in Fort Kent, the ambulance in Fort Kent, just to say a few things, just a few. So it's completely skewed towards Frenchville and Madawaska. That's the site, and they're voting tomorrow on that site. So that's one step. Every step that they're going to be taking for the next 2 years is going to be hard to untake. Can't take it back, not easy. We're going to have some votes, they call them their straw polls. 2 votes before the final vote of all the people. Now these straw polls are going to be held at the school board gymnasium, at the school gymnasium. Probably be a raise of hands. You know what happens there. And they don't mean anything. In other words, it's just to give the Commissioner of Education a clue of what's going to be happening, how the people feel. And you know, the last vote, which will be over 2 years from now, everything will be done. The design, everything. And we'll be at a point where backing out is going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult. The way this agreement first came out, the agreement I was talking about, it was voted on at the budget meeting 2018 in the summer. Their agenda was put out, their budget agenda. 5 days later, they put out an addendum indicating that you approve a municipal schools getting together, the 3 organizations. And that was done 5 days later, and they posted it, and then they voted at the budget meeting for that. Very important. Most people didn't know about it. I don't know if you guys did. In any event, 73 or 74 people came. 72 voted for it. Now that's out of all MSAD 27. That doesn't seem fair. There's no publicity on what they were voting for. And then the addendum was put out 5 days after their regular budget, but it was all put together and it was labeled budget. It wasn't labeled budget and. So I find that very unfair, and it borderlines on fraudulent, I think, because people don't know about it. I've talked to a few town council. They didn't know about it, and if anybody should know about it, they should. At the last budget meeting, I asked 2 board members, did you know if Fort Kent could get, or MSAD 27 could get out? No. Did you read the contract? No. But it's been signed. That law firm had everybody sign it. It's a nice contract. I have it right here. It's something like 30 pages. But the people signed it and didn't read it, and getting out of it is not easy. It's a 25-year contract with an automatic 10-year renewal. And the grounds for getting out are not easy. It has to be voted on. And of course, MSAD 27 only has 3 votes out of 9, and they don't have the majority, so they couldn't get out. It would be very difficult to get out. So right now, tomorrow morning, the board, our board, is meeting with their attorneys in executive session. They had to hire attorneys because they called this law firm and they said, oh, we can't represent you now because there's a conflict of interest in not getting along. So they were, I don't know who they were representing, if they were representing Madawaska, Senegat, or all 3 of them, or whatever. So our own school board is in bind right now. They're having difficult times. They had to hire a law firm. They have to pay for the law firm. We don't have to pay for the law firm. So the only reason I felt you guys should know about it is so that at one point in time, in the near future, maybe you could take a position and say, look, we bear the brunt of the taxes that we collect for MSAD 27. And if they're going to be 3 or 4 mills more, we have to think twice about this. And that's probably the reason I'm concerned.
Thank you, Bob.
I don't know if you guys have received that information
Yes.
earlier, those media put it together. And I try to, going back and looking objectively at things, just to doing some homework and looking for the facts out there, whether, how history predicated itself and what's currently happening, what the future is. And if you took a few minutes to read some of this information that I did find, and I have all the supporting information behind this to support every single one of these statements that I put in front of all of you today. So when you take, since 2007, the Baltachi administration was the one that had gone out, and he was the one that basically said to everybody, which is, we're going to force you to consolidate, because we can't afford this big snowball that's coming down the hill, so we're going to consolidate everyone. And it didn't go over so well, because 10 years later, you had 30 individual MSADs that had already withdrawn from their RSUs and their SADs, only 10 years later. And as of today, or actually as of 2016, there's 44 in total that pulled out. So in looking at how history sometimes repeats itself is the last school board meeting I was at, and I asked Peter Karen, and I asked him, I said, well, how does this deal that we have now make it any different than what people have had in the past? And his answer to me just didn't quite sit well, which is we're being given this opportunity, that we're not being forced into it, we're being given an opportunity. So I went back and did some more homework based on that statement, just to see how that kind of boils down. And I would agree is that, you know, some communities can get along and they can merge together, they can make things happen together. But to some of Bob's comments a second ago, which is there's a few things that have gone wrong in the process. One is we could have gone to a public referendum on voting of the creation of Valley Unified, period, which would then have forced everyone to become more knowledgeable about what's this thing we're building. It took us, what, 2-3 years maybe to shut down a couple of schools in Wallgrass and St. Francis. There's a lot of debate, had to go to public referendum, you know, people got informed about it, you know, as to what was the right thing that we should be doing here. This thing got created on a Saturday morning after some letter that we got from the commissioner's office, came in and went to what we all know is a rarely attended forum, which is a school budget meeting. So it's 72 people, which is 1% of the stakeholders within this MSAD and within the place that we live, from newborn babies to almost on their way out of the nursing homes, you know, that voted to make this decision for the creation of Valley Unified. What we didn't understand is the creation of Valley Unified that's there. You go back and you read the statutes as to the abilities that are there and the things that they can do as a governance, or how they govern all the entities that are there within it. And that's what my concern is for this group and for even the other groups that are out there, which is, what are we doing? Do we even know what we're doing? Do we know what the governing body can do? And we've already seen some things that have been done. They're a little concerning, because not that anything's not done legally correctly, but it's kind of borderline as to now I feel as though that we're backpedaling so much to try to obtain information, when we probably should have that information in the beginning to make the decisions that we need to make going forward. So, here nor there. What I did provide, though, for yourselves to review is some information that's there just regarding to the taxing that's there. And whether this school does or does not go through, there's a comment that Doug Sear had made in the last school board meeting about the deferred maintenance cost. So I'm not sure what that number is. I'm not sure what's out there that needs to get done. But it appears that because we have what's potentially a school that has not been maintained to the level that it's supposed to be maintained, or it's run down to the point that if we decide to repair this thing and keep it going until something else was to happen, taxpayers are going to get hit with something. And the unknown cost of the new school to the unknown cost of deferred maintenance costs that are there has an effect on everybody, you guys in this room. So there's a lot of, I guess, unknowns that are there, and we could sit here and dig into these things all day long, but I hopefully provide enough information for you guys to just think about things and to dig a little further in on your own to see what you can find out that would help make your own minds up and your own decisions. Is Valley Unified a good thing for MSAD 27 and the town of Fort Kent and all of its stakeholders? Or is it something that we need to be concerned about and potentially looking other directions, because of some of those concerns that are out there? We've heard a lot of good stuff about a brand new school, and I don't disagree. A brand new school, collaboration, new programs, and I'm not against any of that stuff at all. But I need to hear, as a business owner, I need to hear the good and the bad. Because if I don't hear the bad stuff that's there, I cannot plan for the future of what the right decision I should be making is doing. A couple small examples I did not include, and I'll end here real quick, is the Sanford School that's been touted as the poster child of everything that's happened at $100.2 million at a 10-year investment cost and was there, with a continued rate increase of 6% annually. Since the inception that was there, and now with an additional 6%. The Hampden School, which was built in 2012, $51.6 million, $6.2 million supported by taxpayer, holds 850 people there. And go back and look at what they're continuing to rise. There's a cost of operation, I get that, but the continued rise of the consolidation that has happened. And the same thing is projected for Caribou, which is currently under construction, at $45 million, with $2.5 million of taxpayer money over the next 20 years. But it's been stated, which is the savings that are there, that they're going to see, like in the heating costs and some of these other things, are only going to be realized in the first 2 years. And depending on how the funding comes back, and the reimbursements and the subsidies from the state of Maine, which is still unknown yet to this point, as to once you consolidate, which is where's the real money at the end of the day. Does the state change the rules on you later because you did a better job? So are you penalized for having a better operation that's there? Or are we going to be awarded more because we have more? And those questions, I think, need to get answered a little bit more clearly to the taxpayers, because at the end of the day, which is what are we willing to spend on our children's education? So if we're willing to spend it, let's do it. But if it doesn't sound right, if it's not affordable, if it doesn't make sense, or to voting authorities, or how the governance of things and how the legal side of things are not set up correctly, this district could end up paying a lion's share of the weight that's there based on two other districts' determinations of what they think should happen. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So right now we know that we're going to be voting on a site, and I just want to know what the council's perspective is as far as if the school is selected to be in Frenchville, if that is approved, if there's any type of contingency plan, because the only thing that the school boards are focused on, and understandably so, I'm not knocking their goal, but it's primarily to get a school built to improve education. And not, like Steve, I'm not knocking that. But my point is that they are not looking at the full picture, what kind of economic impact it will have, cultural impact, social impact. So there's a lot of that that's not involved with that process. So in other words, my thought is that if a school's in Frenchville, my prediction is that out-migration, for instance, will continue to accelerate. So my question to the council is, what part do you think you're going to have in this moving forward? If the selection, the site is approved to be in Frenchville. In other words, if you as councilors don't feel that that's in the best interest of all the taxpayers in SAD 27, what is the plan moving forward from a municipal perspective? Is there anything our town councilors can do to maybe work on some kind of analysis as to, number one, if the school's in Frenchville, how much the taxes are going to increase? How much is going to accelerate out-migration? How much is going to hurt businesses? All of those things. Is there a position for the council to take after a site is actually approved and selected?
Any other people that want to make comment?
I forgot something.
Okay.
In spite of the fact that we only have 1/3 of the vote, we're going to be paying close to 2/3 of the bill at that school. So that's another thing to be looking at.
I think that if the school were to leave Fort Kent, I think we'd be letting down the communities that have supported this town for many, many years. Allagash, St. Francis, Eagle Lake, Wallagrass, New Canada. We're a hub. And we need to keep that hub. And, I'll speak on behalf of Madawaska. If I was a Madawaska resident, I'd be fighting to keep that school there, because wherever the school is built, it's another nail in their coffin. Their economy, I work in Madawaska, okay? There's a big difference between Madawaska and Fort Kent. Go downtown. Go downtown. 66% of our tax bill goes to education. And for people to say and accuse people of Fort Kent that we don't support education is baloney. We get 66% of our tax bill goes to education, the other 10% goes to the county. That leaves us 24% to plow our roads, take care of our employees. Where do we draw the line here? We were told years ago that we were going to put a biomass system in that school and we were going to save thousands of dollars. It's costing us $100,000 more a year to keep that school because there are flaws in that system. And all of a sudden we're hearing deferred maintenance. Right. And it seems like deferred maintenance is kind of this, why is the deferred maintenance issue coming up and making a comparison of deferred maintenance versus building a new school? Why is that coming up all of a sudden? Is that a tactic to scare us? To say, it's going to cost you a whole bunch of money. If that school's unsafe, pull those kids out of there now. And I'm not saying that fiscally these, teachers are led by a union. I'm sure that you guys have dealt with unions before. There's very little you can do about controlling payroll. But when 66% of we're going to kill our town. If our school leaves our town, the ski hill is here. This is a community here. We have supported our children for many, many years. I left. I came back 15 years ago because I believed in this community. I don't, but I'm telling you, if that school is built in Frenchville, I don't think it's going to affect our economy that well. Where are people going to move? They're going to move next to the hospital. They're going to move next to the university. They're going to move to a vibrant town, So I think that, you know, we need to think about the communities that supported us. I think we need to keep them in mind and not, you know, hurt them. But you gotta keep the taxpayers in mind here. I mean, we support education. I mean, I know that there are times budgets have come in and we've always been able to compromise at a reasonable manner. And you know, you look at our highway department. I mean, we're lucky we have Tony Terrio running our highway department because we as board members, I've sat in those chairs. And yeah, we cut, the department heads come in, Tom comes in with a budget, we cut. And then we're given this budget for the school and there's nothing we can do about it. We don't know where the money's going. It just doesn't seem fair.
You know, you drive down Pleasant Street, and that's quite something to see. The grammar school, the high school, and the college. So that's gone, you guys. You know, this is a special little town here. And you take like the high school, for example. It's made out of bricks and cement, can be rebuilt. They're just going to have to budget. They're just going to have, I have to budget my business. They can do the same thing too. If they have to cut, so be it. I mean, keep raising taxes, you guys. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. Nobody's going to want to buy anything because taxes are too high. So, I mean, this is my solution.
I'm going to take my hat off as chair and speak as a member of the public in regards to my opinions as to what this school is doing, this school movement is doing. Initially, when it was first proposed, it seemed like it was a good idea as a way of being able to increase the student population in the school, to be able to maintain program and offer different choices as opposed to just doing the basics, because you have enough students to be able to offer different things and have more than one person in the class. It was a way of potentially helping the surrounding communities with their student enrollments falling faster, SAD 33, Madawaska. And since Fort Kent, but since SAD 27 had close to 60% of the student population, it seemed that when you looked at it objectively, you would end up with a decision that it made sense to have the school located where the student population is centered. Maybe not on Pleasant Street, but at least within the center of the population. So they went through all of the metrics of trying to look at the different choices and pick the different sites, and they come up with a site in Frenchville because the site selection committee members that represented some of the other communities were less open to looking at what was best for the students in their decision making, and were somewhat bullying the whole group. Well, the bullying of the whole group that went on the site selection committee is going to continue as long as you're married to those communities. And so that part is not going to change. You can kind of equate it to being like in Canada, how the rest of Canada has to bow to Quebec whenever Quebec makes a lot of noise. Well, Fort Kent's going to have to bow to Madawaska because they're going to make a lot of noise. We're going to have a minority vote and a majority bill. That doesn't seem very fair. So our future is going to be decided by others. And when that happens, I don't think that that's in the best interest of this community. So,
Why doesn't the board take a position? Why wait?
so, you know, it's my personal opinion that I don't support moving ahead with this. And I am not in favor of SAD 27 going forward
Make a motion, take a vote.
with
Now.
the Valley Unified proposal of a school in Frenchville. For those reasons.
And I'll speak up to that. I feel the same way.
I was very objective about this whole deal until I went to a meeting. And I saw how badly they treated Tom Pelletier, our chief, and how poorly they treated Ed Endy. What they did to these two guys who bring credibility to both our departments was awful. It was terrible. And I changed my mind that night. I said, you know what? This stuff is never gonna stop. You'll have you'll have a baseball team, you'll have 6 kids from Fort Kent, 3 from Madawaska, and the people from Madawaska will be freaking out.
Right.
You know, when I saw it, and it's like, this is crazy.
But I guess to that point, I guess, and the things that we're bringing to you guys as well is that you're the group that takes the brunt of that. Because no one shows up to a school board meeting to be able to vent their frustration and concern to those meetings. There's been a lot more attendance in the past 6 months than there's ever been probably since, you know, people have been hosting public school board meetings, but it's the taxpayers will come and look at this brick building here as to where the problem lies, if there's a problem to be had out there. So I appreciate you guys for speaking your comments and your 2 cents, but there's a lot of more that's built into this matrix, and I've done a lot of homework for the past 3 or 4 weeks now, just looking in this and trying to find out what facts are, because there's talk of this and that and everything from every angle, every corner, and every side on the different teams that are out there. But when you look into the facts of it, there's not a lot of logical common sense in this based on what we currently own as a town. We currently have the 2 schools, we have the university, we have the hospital, we have a lot of stuff going for us.
We've already got 8 or 9 towns, and just us alone.
I agree with you right there, which is it would take away from the value of participating to an MSAD. Because right now there is a value for another town to participate into it. Eagle Lake chose to pull out for their own reasons. I don't think they're saving any money. As a matter of fact, I know they're not saving any money. So they paid in some extra money to where they stand today, but that's going to disappear in the next 1.5 years. So they'll probably be looking to come back in. So the value of the MSAD 27 to me will only start going down if participating to the other entity that's there is now costing MSAD 27 money.
Yes, the woman in the back.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, as somebody who's been living here for 12 years, but moved in from an outside area and have seen many of my fellow physicians come and go, and having problems retaining physicians and retaining professors at UMFK, which, as you guys mentioned, are some of the benefits that this town has, and something that makes Fort Kent very special, unique, and wonderful, is that they will cite, people with children will often move away because we don't have the same amount of services and same perceived notion of availability of different opportunities for the children at the local school. And while I feel that the local school does a fabulous job, a lot of people are looking for something that is more expansive. And whatever stance the council decides to take or not take about what happens in the future, keeping in mind that if we choose not to participate, but the population, which is nationwide, birth rates are going down. It's not as if there are people moving elsewhere. Birth rates are going down across the state. So it's not a population that's going to grow and expand by itself. It's not something that's going to bring in more state funding. They're going to have the same building with the same repair cost and a dwindling student population and cut more and more services. And then you're going to find it's hard to get people from away to move here and fill some of the jobs that are needed to keep the rest of the community going. So whatever happens with this process, keeping in mind that something will need to be done about this in the future. And if we say no to this but don't have a plan B, what are we doing to ourselves?
That's a good point, though, we don't have a plan B.
There's no plan B.
Well, that's,
And so when people are wondering, well, should we take this or not? It's like, well, right now, it seems like we either combine schools, which sounds wonderful, and there's a lot of good points, like that was said. There's a lot of good points to that. And it's either do that in Frenchville because of the way the crazy state system is in picking this process, or not do that and get stuck with the dwindling population, dwindling school services. I mean, yes, 66% of the budget goes to school and it feels bad, but if we don't have young people in the community, when I'm old and want to like go to Crosswinds to be taken care of, there isn't going to be anyone to take care of you. So, you know, you have to put the effort into the youth to be able to sustain the town over time.
All right, so two things. One, we had reached out to MMA to find out about taking a stance on this issue, right? And they had a recommendation.
Reaching out to,
No, okay.
no, this is something.
All right, so I guess I'm not in disagreement with almost anything that's been said here tonight. And my example that I bring in is the tech center. And when we were in high school, the tech center was the newest, greatest thing, and it had all kinds of services. It offered welding, it offered electrical and carpentry. And now we still have that building, but the services offered are less. And so we don't have a plan B, but people are talking, and a plan B is not that far away because we can still collaborate by sharing services with buildings that are already existing. If you have specialty education in one area in Madawaska, then you can travel students that want to take that specific education to Madawaska, and then have a different curriculum in Fort Kent, and then we have the tech center in Frenchville. So we have 3 buildings, and even more if we take Senegat and Frenchville, their buildings into account. So we don't necessarily need a new building to have more programming. We just need to be able to work together more.
We can still have the education they want with what we have already.
Right. Without being held financially responsible. I mean, that's we're being financially hostage, and that's never good.
I think the concern though is this dividing our town?
Breaking it
Issue
up.
dividing our town. I mean, social media is crazy. If everybody got off Facebook, I mean, and if we could all get under one roof and, you know, deck it out and duke it out, it would be great, but, you know, that's a concern that I have. It's like, we've got some people that are just dead set for it. Some people are on the fence, and it's creating a division, a big division.
And a lot of
So, I mean, I don't have an answer for that, but it's out there, and it's not good.
I feel like we should not wait till the end. We should nip this in the bud now and decide what we're going to do now and not wait till it's all said and done and it's too late.
But I don't think our say is anything more than yours as a voter. I mean, we really don't have a stake to, we've all said, well, not you all, but most of us have made a statement that has said what we believe, but I don't believe it's our place to.
The Madawaska Town Council took a position on where the site selection committee did their thing.
They're firing their town manager and they're.
but the town could withdraw from the district, correct? And that could be initiated by the council.
Could we threaten or something?
The reality of the town withdrawing from SAD 27 is it's almost dead in the water, because without Fort Kent and SAD 27, the commissioner is going to look at that and say the rest of the towns can't support it.
Yeah, but if we vote it out, I mean, it's not gonna go through, in other words.
Has to be approved by the commission.
It still has to be approved by the commissioner, and the commissioner has, I mean, the town of Fort Kent could initiate a process that says we want to get out of SAD 27. We make a vote and go through the process and say we want to get out of SAD 27. We send it into the state for approval by the commissioner. They're going to look at that and they're going to say, yeah, you can't do that. Fort Kent pays 60% of SAD 27 cost. I mean, what are they going to do? it's gonna fall, it's gonna destabilize the whole thing, so they.
So if the council knows, or the council is not in agreement with the school being built in Frenchville, I guess my question to the council is, do you have a plan, a contingency plan, to maybe assist the town? In other words, if the council says, okay, this is gonna be a train wreck, let's just say. If it's in Frenchville, and you as councilors know it's gonna be a train wreck for the town, what is the plan to protect the town from a train wreck? I guess from a municipal perspective, is there something the council could do to kind of either mitigate some of those damages or stop the train wreck totally, I guess is my.
I think that would be up to the school board.
It is. I mean, as I said at the beginning, the school board members that represent the town of Fort Kent are the ones that are given the charge of.
They have no authority.
They have
The school
all.
board has no
Elected
authority.
officials.
No, not anymore.
They're the ones that created this thing.
I know.
Right.
And they, very difficult to uncreate. Although Madawaska stated on several occasions that they could get out of it if it was coming to Fort Kent. So if they did a little bit of research, some legal research, maybe that's possible for us as well. So I don't know.
You'll find out tomorrow morning, Bob.
No, we won't find out anything tomorrow morning. I don't think so. But tomorrow morning, our school board is meeting with their law firm, an executive session. But it's just to hash out whatever problems they have, so we don't know what they're looking at either.
Right. I mean, there's differences between the structure of Fort Kent in SAD 27 and Madawaska School, because Madawaska isn't part of an SAD. So Madawaska School is basically Madawaska. So it's
easier with them.
It's different, yeah. You know, they're not part of a group. I mean, this whole idea of building a new school and coming up with money and saying that, you know, we're gonna give you some money to build a new school, would have been ideal if it had been given to SAD 27 that had, you know, at one time 6 communities together, working together. Because they're already working together. They're all already culturally together. I mean, as was said earlier, you know, Fort Kent is the hub for these communities. Their services are coming to Fort Kent. That makes sense. I mean, it's not going to be very easy to marry Fort Kent with Madawaska and work together.
I mean, just if you want another little short story, because this one is from my family. My son came to this school, and Chris did a great job and everything. He was in that Rural Youth program that was there, and spent his junior and his senior year, and then he went off to the Air Force. He's in the military, took more courses in class over there, and kind of did his thing and stuff. And he plans on coming back to go back to that university again to finish up his bachelor's degree, and then be able to continue to keep living here in this town. I don't think that if Chris would have seen, Chris has gone to a lot of different places and experienced a lot of things, whatever, but he really appreciates home. And when he comes back here, he appreciates this town and everything else. I think this town does have an awful lot to offer, and I think that just because you get a new car doesn't make you a better driver, type deal. So, you know, I think that to Jake's point is that there's an awful lot of opportunity that is there. You know, I go in from my small business and I go into Kathy Bouchard's classroom and I talk to her students, and I think there's more of that kind of collaboration that can happen to be able to give students a different educational experience that's there. But we need to figure out that plan B too. So if we're all in agreement at some level that we don't think that this thing's going to work for us, well, we already know what's currently happening is kind of just holding and treading water for right now. Well, going forward, to have kids like my son come back to this town and want to get into cybersecurity and have a business here online and do a bunch of stuff, whatever, that's really what we need to be able to just maintain status quo of the younger people that are going to be staying in this town. So.
What was very interesting too, a month ago, the astronaut in outer space called Caribou High School and talked to all the students. And she said, it's not the fancy and big school that's going to get you anywhere, it's the instruction and the motivation you have.
I mean,
She did it.
as far as Paul's comment on dividing people in the community, I mean, this new school business, everybody that works at the school wants a new car. So, I mean, everybody's gonna be in favor of having a brand new school. I mean, who wouldn't want to work in a brand new school, or a brand new hospital, or have a brand new car? I mean, it's human nature. Everybody wants a new versus the old. And, you know, but is it always better? And the bricks and mortar doesn't necessarily make the education.
So, to be fair though, the new school would involve, if I understand correctly, probably cutting 25 teacher positions. So they want this for the benefit of their students, and some of them are going to end up jobless as a result. So it's not just the shiny new car. They really do think this is better for kids. And when you look at diminishing population over time and the need to cut services, it's not just the kids who have bright futures ahead of them, but you're going to end up having to cut special education services, physical therapy services, occupational therapy services. I see kids in my practice from all over the St. John Valley, so I care about the kids here, of course, because I live here too, and my kids are here, but also I care about the kids in Frenchville, and some Madawaska kids come see me, and you know, a lot of them really need those extra services to make their education work. And so the instruction can be top-notch, but if you have those kids fall behind because they have a medical condition that causes them to not be able to learn well, or physically interact with other people well, or have behavior issues, and you take away those services because you have to keep cutting because you don't consolidate, then, or you know, somehow attract other people or have some kind of plan B, you're going to end up with a lot of people that are unable to complete a good education, even if the instruction is top-notch.
It all boils down to money.
It does.
Plan B is gonna cost money.
Yeah, a lot.
John,
Yes.
the other guys in the council, or what do you guys, what's your opinion?
Said mine already.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I take the same stance as what John has. I was in favor of the school when it first started, but with everything happening, and it just turned me right off. But my biggest question is that the plan B, if we don't go unified, what is it going to cost us to upgrade our school? And nobody's come out with any type of figures, and I think they should look into that so they could share it with the voters, and so they can make an honest decision on, can we afford this, or do we go the other route?
Can we afford it not to do it? That information has been gathered. We're taking a look at it. The building is 70 years old, so it's deferred maintenance isn't deferred maintenance. It's the fact that the building wasn't designed for more than 70 years, so.
But it can be rebuilt. It's made out of cement and bricks. There's nothing wrong. They're building homes that are 200 years old. They're rebuilding it.
Still moving the house.
I mean, you learn the budget. That's the biggest problem with the schools. They can't budget.
Come to the budget hearings, please.
Hey, believe me, I'm following. They know how I am over here. When it comes down to taxes, in the next 5-10 years, let me tell you something, guys. It's going to be critical in this town. There's people that are getting up there in age and are trying to stay in their homes, and they can't even do it no more. We're no doctors. Let me tell you something. And your employee don't pay taxes, and you guys, the town council should turn around and start charging some of the hospitals taxes and stuff like that to help us out. I call them freeloaders, you know that?
The hospital is 3 or 4 years old.
I think the town of Fort Kent, if it's going to be.
You all set, Mr. Pelletier? You're all set with what you were saying?
What I was saying is that the high school is newer than hospital. And we still have a very fine hospital, and I think the high school still looks very good also.
And we can invite Madawaska to us and their kids to Fort Kent if they want, but we just put more in the same building.
Keith, that will never happen.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, what I mean, John,
Hold on,
okay, go ahead.
Vaughn wanted to say something, and I cut him off at one.
If the town of Fort Kent, or CD 27, is facing the possibility of 60% of the cost of this new unified system, and we're going to face a serious out-migration, and still we're going to be paying the bill. The building does not educate anybody.
Right.
It's the teachers and the motivation that the teachers can provide to the students. I don't see any benefit to Fort Kent or SAD 27 because the people from the outlying communities are going to have to travel there for anything that occurs in Frenchville. We have the population, we're going to have the cost. If we can't have the schools in Fort Kent, I say the town has to do its utmost to get out of this unified system, whatever it costs.
I was just reminded this week too of some older buildings in town, and Leroy, I'm reminded because you're sitting here, but we have the courthouse and the fire station that were old and dilapidated and now have been repaired and serve the community quite well. So I don't know. I've been in the high school downstairs, upstairs, and quite a few of the cracks that maybe some others haven't. And I keep hearing it's in bad shape, but I guess I just don't know where. I remember the roof's not that old. There is water that comes in from a pipe in the basement during flood season, but the pipe can be pulled out of the field. So
We always took care of it.
I went to the old wooden high school they had here before they had bricks and mortar, and they pumped out doctors and lawyers and you name it, Indian chiefs and everything. So it's not the school.
I have a question. Does anyone happen to know when SAD 27 was formed and the other schools joined us, was there any out-migration from those towns to Fort Kent, the way that you guys are concerned about outgoing migration from Fort Kent to Frenchville?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Like, do you have numbers though? Does anyone have numbers for that?
I didn't research it, but I can figure it.
Yeah.
I've done some research, but because the schools, like, it hasn't really been all that long. since
Right,
it's
it
been.
hasn't been a long
And the
time.
outlying towns, like Eagle Lake has a lake, so people are drawn to.
Right, well, we
Eagle
still
Lake,
have a
but-
college in the hospital, so like those aren't going away.
No.
They're gonna pay taxes. That's what they gotta do.
Just coming back to the point of dividing the community. We've seen enough contention amongst people on social media from professional people in prestigious places that make comments that affect the community itself. There's a number of business people in this room right now who have contributed very dearly over the years to booster clubs, to the children's activities, and have opened up their wallet and dug quite deeply. To have people on a board of the Tri-Community Board, or whatever you want to call it, come out and want to boycott the big money businesses that are supporting exactly what's being talked about tonight, I have a big problem with that. Fort Kent is the hub, and I know that from being the police chief here, we don't always just deal with Fort Kent issues. I have people from St. John, St. Francis, Allagash, Eagle Lake, and New Canada and Wallagrass, to name them all, I guess, that are calling here all the time for issues they have in their community. Yeah, they don't pay my wages, the town of Fort Kent does. But because these people are what I consider the hub, the place that they do their business, the place where they conduct their business, buy stuff at the local stores, and send their kids to the school, the heartbeat of this town is on Pleasant Street. People from these surrounding communities come there. And to have people criticize and come out and publicly take a stand, people in administrative positions that should recuse themselves from any of those discussions that are happening. Voice these things about our local businesses is absurd to me. So how are we going to be able to move forward? Yeah, I'm not a Fort Kent resident, but I am a Fort Kent person. This is my community. This is where I work. This is the people who I represent. And I represent all of those other communities that are there too. But to hear these things divide our community because of where this school is going to go is absurd. And it's not, as you said, Doc, it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. The contention is only getting worse. So that's just a point I want to make from my observations, having worked in all of those communities at one time in my career. I went to Sinclair School. My dad worked in all of these communities, as well as I have. Culturally, there is a difference. The people in Frenchville, St. Agatha, Sinclair, and the Long Lake region associate themselves with Madawaska, hence where they're at today. All of these other surrounding communities, people do their shopping and do their everything else in Fort Kent. And there is a difference, and I don't think there's a difference that we can repair.
We're already 9 communities that make it 27.
Let's take a straw poll to see what you guys vote.
I think it'll take more than one meeting, Larry. Give them a break here. Come on.
We didn't hear from the 2 others. I want to hear from the 2 others.
Okay, you can hear from me.
Okay, go ahead then.
You're gonna respect, because yeah, you're gonna hear from me, and I know I've refrained a lot because professionally I teach at MS City 33, so this is kind of a hard thing to be in the middle of it, to be honest with you. But I've remained professional, and I try to do what's best for my students, and I know in education, that's what we need to keep in mind. I'd like to know what the impact will be if we do move forward and go to, have this school in Frenchville, and it sounds like it will kill our community. So obviously I'm not on board for that, but I'd like to know what the cost would be for us if we don't go forward with it, and that's what my concern would be. I don't go on Facebook, I don't go social media. I think I try to stay away from all that stuff. It gives, everyone's opinionated, I just try to seek out the facts and then make a decision. But I know everyone, I don't know if there'd be an issue here if this school selection would have chosen Fort Kent. I think we'd all be on for it. And now we're bringing it up that the taxes are going to increase. That's this is how I view things. I see why the community is so passionate about having it here, because I agree, we are the hub, and I agree with all of it. But I've been biting my tongue to almost the point of bleeding to just refrain from, being on either side, to be honest with you, and look at it on all aspects of it. I don't know if people on the site selection felt they were bullied. They would have to say that they felt so. I don't know now and you're asking me, and I'm trying to be honest with you, is that I just saw it all explode when the choice was to go to Frenchville. And I don't know if that would have happened had it been chosen here. I know I can see it probably, the explosion happened in Frenchville, Madawaska, because everyone wants it to be in their community. My opinion would have been, if it did come to Fort Kent, there's no way in hell that Madawaska would want to agree to come here. That's how I felt. Frenchville, for what I represent at the school, honestly, we educate our kids. I think we would have been fine coming to Fort Kent. I have no issue with it. And I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone at MS City 33, but that seems to be the viewpoint that we're fine. They're happy, obviously, that it's going to Frenchville. I won't deny that. I think we'd be happy if it was chosen to Fort Kent. I think we wouldn't have a serious issue with it. So, excuse me. I know that I've tried to remain professional as a teacher at that district. I have not stated any of my opinions there. I do my job. I sometimes will hear things in that, but, and I've refrained from going to social media and saying what I really think. But I know as a town councilman and sitting in this chair, I represent you as the community, and so I do want to do what's best. My kids go to school. They're both, I got 5 and 7-year-olds. They both come to our school. I'm proud of the education they're receiving at our school. It's not easy to be a single parent with all the increased taxes that you speak of and all that. I get it. Life is hard. But I try to do my best, and I try to, again, represent the people that I... So that's my stance on it, and I know maybe you're going to say, well, that's wishy-washy. You're not taking a stance. But I'm going to remain professional through all of it, as best as I can.
Just real, along, one of the things you mentioned was the explosion, and I guess we've been on council for a little while, took a year break, and in the start of the process, we sat in on a lot of meetings where they explained an algorithm process that was going to take place. And then as the process started taking place, the algorithm started changing to better suit other areas over Fort Kent. And I think that that's directly in part to the bullying that was being spoken of. And how Madawaska said there was no way we are going to go to that school if it's in Fort Kent. And the people that run an engineering firm have a job to do and make money. And if you know that, then you're going to go to where you're most likely to succeed. And I think that the people in Fort Kent have had a history of being a little more easy to work with, so to speak. And so this is where we're at now. And again, I was for the school being anywheres until the algorithm started changing. And I started seeing that process place, and now I can't support it if it's not going to be in Fort Kent.
I'm going to speak up before Corey goes. I was a part of the site selection committee, and I did concede with the majority to vote for the Frenchville site. But as town manager of Fort Kent, I should have voted for the Fort Kent site, because that's where my heart was, for the Fort Kent site. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Did you feel pressured into voting? Well, or
Scott, I can tell you this, Scott. Sure. I've been a police officer for over 30 years. I've become fairly good at reading body language. That's been part of my job. I enjoy doing it. I went to a couple of those site selection committees meetings and was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for the people that were there. For 3 people in particular that took over that meeting. I watched people cower in their seat and not even want to make eye contact with anybody else around that when 3 people in particular spoke. Loud, boisterous, in control, took control. So I call that bullying.
Yep.
And that was from a bystander sitting in the audience until I was put on the spot myself by one of those, 2 of those same people. I didn't feel it was really my place to put them back in their place. I figured things were going to happen because people in Fort Kent take the high road. Unfortunately, those people ran that site selection committee and people cowered in their seat to them. And I felt bad for those people, and that is what happened.
Yeah, so I'll give you my piece. I can speak to what Tom said. I went to a couple of those site selection meetings, and there was a lot of bullying going on, and I feel like the matrix kept getting changed and changed, and it was always benefiting not Fort Kent. And I also have concerns with the economic impact that it will have on Fort Kent. I own multiple rental properties in town, so I'm protecting my investment with, I don't want to see this moving forward, to see a school built in Frenchville and have us lose our school. I believe that the way they voted to join Valley Unified was done in an incorrect manner, and we were not aware of it. So I would I would like to see SAD withdraw from Valley Unified.
And I'd like to see a plan B.
Well,
And how much are we willing to spend on our kids?
Now, in comment to that, we have to basically admit that the school administration, who is to oversee the educational process, has been highly focused on moving in this direction solely. So the people that are there have basically taken this and moved forward with it, and, you know, not really spend a lot of time looking at Plan B alternative, because they're looking at this unified process.
You know, if we have to go to Plan B, Fort Kent has built a ski hill. Fort Kent has built a golf course. We built an outdoor center. I mean, we've supported our children, and there's no reason why we can't build a school. There's got to be a way.
And we can work with the college if we had to.
There's got to be a way.
Plus, there are grants out there.
If we stick together, we can do this.
There are grants to repair schools too.
There are.
Although we were told there was none, but I'm sure there is grants out there that we could apply for at least.
Whether we're proud of it. Well, I think to John's point was that we gotta deal with what's at hand first.
Yeah.
And
You have to realize, like John said, the administration got $600,000 to get this rolling until it's built. It's a lot of money.
I find if this moves forward, our Madawaska's taxes will go down, Frenchville's taxes may go down, ours will go up for sure, because 60–70% of the students was bound to go up here, is going to go down over there.
You know, they want to save some money. I hate to say that, but close Friendsville and Senegat, those are the oldest schools. They can go either to Madawaska or Fort Kent. Let them decide. That's my opinion. We get more money for the kids if they come to Fort Kent.
Larry, Senegat and Frenchville are financially sound. They got money put away.
They don't have budgets.
But they don't have the children, that's right. But as far as for money, they're all set for their school department.
There's no social, there's no social.
So if the council, right now, the majority of the council seems to be obviously not supporting the school going to Frenchville. So if, for instance, there's a straw poll and it says, okay, we still want it in Frenchville, whatever, is there any way that the council could at least notify the citizens of the town to say, listen, this is what's happening. We feel that this is not in the best interest of Fort Kent. To at least notify the citizens so they can make an informed decision and at least know that the council doesn't think it's in, you know, is there something the council could do to notify the citizens? If it's going in a direction that the council doesn't feel is in the best interest of the town.
When the time is appropriate.
Do it after the election.
You have to realize that this straw poll will be held at the gymnasium, the same as the school budget meetings, and there'll only be the same amount of people there, a couple hundred.
Yeah.
People are not gonna go vote there and be ridiculed,
That's right.
like they have been for years. I don't go anymore.
No, nobody goes.
I used to go and sit next to Don Guimont and Don would say, please don't sit next to me, because you're gonna ask a question and they think I know you. So, you can't go there and buck the system.
That's the thing, and participation at those meetings are extremely low. You know that. Citizens don't go there because they're
90%
afraid.
of it is
They're
teachers.
afraid, they're literally afraid to go. I've been to a budget meeting where people were standing up yelling at the opposition, and it was unbelievable. So I think historically, nobody goes to those meetings. So I guess that is really why I'm asking the council to possibly take some kind of a position and maybe educate the citizens as to how they feel. Because they're not going to the budget meeting.
Well, I think as we move forward in this process, there will be opportunity for input for us as individuals. Again, I think, you know, our position really is not, as a council, we really don't have say for this. Because the school board are the ones that are given that duty but I think you've heard our individual opinions. I think as we move forward in this process, the school group is a large voting bloc. And you can bet that they're going to organize to get their vote out. And we will have to do, the rest of the community will have to do the same.
Organize.
And so,
Well, that's what I mean. I guess, again, I would like to hear from the council, is that something you could do for the citizens? In other words, when the time comes, if the voting population is so low at the school board meetings, is there a way the council could notify the citizens and kind of let them know, this is what's happening? We do not feel like this is in the best interest of our town. It's important that you go vote. I mean, not necessarily say vote one way or the other, but at least say that,
Come listen.
you know, it's important that this vote, if you don't support this or do support it, go vote regardless, you know?
The process that's there at a school board meeting is much different too, because you come here to the town meeting, you get all day vote.
right.
You go over there, you've got that 10-minute window, you know, and it's a different type of process that's there. So if you had absentee ballots and you had all day voting and you had whatever that was there, I tell you what, your attendance and your voting record would be much, much different than what it is currently.
Yes.
Not opposed to, I mean, speaking for myself, but when the time comes and it gets closer to the public being informed, especially prior to making a decision, we can take some sort of, I'd be for taking some sort of ad or with some bullet points to help educate. But yeah, that's an important part of it. So yeah.
And we can certainly make sure that the community is informed about the voting time or the voting, when things need to get voted on. The straw poll that's going to happen, I mean, it's just so that they can show the commissioner that it's worth moving forward. If the straw poll fails,
They're still unsure if two communities and one doesn't support it, they're still unsure, it might still move ahead though.
I think it could move ahead if Madawaska and Fort Kent, Madawaska and SAD 27 voted in the positive and SAD 33 voted against it, it probably would still move forward just because of the numbers of students. I think if either Madawaska or Fort Kent does not support it, it's probably going to be dead in the water.
Right. Could we draft a letter to the commissioner?
I think we need to wait.
Is that out of place? Or is that potential?
I don't think it's out of place.
I think that might weigh more volume than.
So, I want to thank you all for your participation tonight. I think we've all learned something about this whole business going on. And I appreciate your input for us as a group here as a council. I mean, regardless of the position that individuals may have, people are trying to do it for the best of the community. And we must not lose sight of that, even if we don't agree with the position. People are trying to do what's best for the community. And collectively, with our different opinions, hopefully we will get to a point where we have the best solution. Thank you.
Still on? Yes. Supposed to sign? Yeah. Supposed to sign it.
They want your autograph, Jim.
Gentlemen, we still have a meeting going on.
You have any sign my name?
Good job.
put your name?
Oh, yeah, good.
Bit of information.
Cameras still on?
Access officer and assistant.
So as part of the Access Act, we're required to appoint someone as the point of contact. And it's recommended that we have some assistants, 1 or 2 assistants, because sometimes I may be out of the office, but the assistant might get the email. As long as we acknowledge that we received the information within 5 days, we do have extra time to get back to them with the actual information. So I just need recommendations to appoint me as the officer. And I chose Angela since she gets a lot of the municipal clerk information, and Cindy, since Cindy does a lot of our town website and Facebook page.
So I'll entertain a motion for Susie to be the
Public access officer.
public access
Public
officer,
information
assistants, Angela and Cindy.
I'll make that
Dave
motion.
and Carol, further discussion, all in favor, motion carries. Waiver or foreclosure?
So we have an individual who owes 2017, 18, and 19 taxes. His trailer is due to foreclose on next week. He has obviously fallen behind, and he stopped in to see me asking if I would set up a payment plan. He paid $100 that day. I did say that I'm willing to take a payment plan. As you're all aware, last year we took in 2 mobile homes and we had to abate them because they were beyond repair. I don't think this one is beyond repair, but in classes that we've been to, we should be signing off on mobile homes for waivers of foreclosure. So if council agrees, I can sign off on the waiver of foreclosure. We have set up a plan, and it looks like he'll be done paying 2017 taxes by April of 2020. He'll still owe the 18 and 19s, and he did not have a homestead exemption. If he had applied for a homestead exemption, he would not be in this situation. His taxes would have literally been $240 a year.
Yeah.
So, but he will have the homestead exemption for 2020.
Okay. We haven't done this in the past.
No, this
So I have a question. Do we qualify as the municipality's legislative body?
Yes.
Because I thought that was, the legislative body was basically the town, like, town meeting. I'm just thinking that basically the town meeting is the legislative body. Now, it's possible that we have authorization to do this through some of the articles that have been passed. But
we don't have an actual article or anything.
But I just, before we act on it, can we clarify that?
And if not, then we'll have to put it as an article in the annual report.
Yes, you'll have to vote on
language
it
on
in March. Yeah.
So I can bring it back for the 23rd.
Yeah.
So does this mean in the meantime that he can't pay for?
No,
I mean, basically, as far as the foreclosure process, it's up to us to do it.
Yeah.
Paperwork, and basically just not do it, even though we
hold off
could be doing it. It's our choice. I mean, it's our choice to foreclose on the property. I know there's been other instances where we had properties that we didn't want to foreclose on because the value, it was going to be a liability to us to foreclose on the property. So we just left it. I mean, let the people keep it.
And he did come in
So,
and he's wanting
yes.
to make this right. He was working
That's
for
good.
a company in town and that company closed, but he's now working in Madawaska.
Yeah, so,
Good. Good for him.
yeah.
Good for him. Good for him.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we don't make an action that we can't do, so.
Right.
And I didn't look at that till 5 o'clock, so
That's
I
fine.
must have to say something.
It's okay. We'll bring it back for the 23rd.
Main PERS.
Main PERS, okay, so we've received our surplus funds from Main PERS from when we had pulled out of Main PERS back in 1996, I believe. We received a check of $413,596.48. What I need is an approval. Per Keelhood, our auditor, he said he would like to see an approval by council to set those funds aside specifically to offset Main PERS and Voya differences. So we need a vote to offset that in an account to be used as employer match for the Main PERS. There is a difference in price between our Voya deferred compensation and Main PERS, so this will help offset.
Right.
We won't be using all of it to offset because we need to slowly build so that we meet somewhere. And I've done the calculations and we have funds for at least 12 years to keep us going if we offset on both sides.
At some point, I'd like to see kind of how those numbers are. I mean, I'd like to see how much we're subsidizing that through that process. But, and the last statement in your note here, it include a percentage increase of the town portion to get to a budgeted amount.
So basically, on a yearly basis,
Right.
the town will also have an increase to offset the Main PERS. So there will be an increase to the budgets,
Right.
so that we end up,
So as one,
it's not a big chunk.
so as one goes away, the other one takes over.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So. So I'd like to see numbers of that. I'd like to see kind of how it sort of like pencils out in that time period, just so that we kind of understand it. I'm not against the concept. We had talked about that back when we made discussions about going to the mainstay retirement, but I still want to have some idea of what it's going to cost us over time.
So I do have.
Okay.
But do you want to just vote on it for the 23rd, or do you?
I mean,
do you want to vote on the offset and then we can?
I'm not, well, personally, I'm not against voting on it tonight.
Okay.
Okay, because it's something that we had discussed before, but I also just want to see the hard numbers, just so that I understand it, and the impact of the budget.
Yep.
But I'll entertain a motion to move forward with this funding here.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion by Carol, second by Corey. Discussion. All in favor? Motion carries.
Okay, executive session.
You want to do the other updates
we're good to-
first,
yep.
or there's not any audience to speak of? No.